Hello everyone. In today's Journal Club, we'll be discussing an article from NEJM which was published on May 7, 2020, a trial of lopinavir ritonavir in adults hospitalized with severe COVID-19, and my moderator is Dr. Aditi. In December 2019, a novel coronavirus designated SARS-CoV-2 has caused an international outbreak of respiratory illness termed COVID-19. The full spectrum of COVID-19 ranges from mild self-limiting respiratory tract illness to severe progressive pneumonia, multi-organ failure and death, and thus far there has been no specific therapeutic agents for coronavirus infections. After the emergence of severe acute respiratory syndrome in 2003, screening of approved drugs identified lopinavir, which was a HIV type 1 aspartate protease inhibitor, as having in vitro inhibitory activity against SARS-CoV, which was the causative organism of SARS in humans, and ritonavir, which is another protease inhibitor, was combined with lopinavir to increase its plasma half-life through the inhibition of cytochrome P450. An open-label study published in 2004 suggested that the addition of lopinavir-ritonavir to ribavirin reduced the risk of adverse clinical outcomes as well as the viral load among patients with SARS. However, lack of randomization and the concomitant use of glucocorticoids and ribavirin in that study made the effect of lopinavir and ritonavir difficult to assess. Since COVID-19 is caused by SARS-CoV-2, which is phylogenetically similar to SARS-CoV-1, which caused SARS, this study was created to evaluate the efficacy and safety of oral lopinavir and ritonavir in SARS-CoV-2 infection. This study was called as LOTUS, which is Lopinavir Trial for Suppression of SARS-CoV-2 in China in adult patients hospitalized with COVID-19. Coming to the inclusion criteria, patients were assessed based on a positive reverse transcriptase a polymerase chain reaction assay in a respiratory tract sample tested by the local center or by a diagnostic laboratory. Male and non-pregnant female above the age of 18 were eligible and in whom pneumonia was confirmed by chest imaging and in whom the oxygen saturation was 94% or less on room A or with a ratio of partial pressure of oxygen to the fraction of inspired oxygen ratio below 300 mm of Hg. Exclusion criteria included a physician's decision that involvement in the trial was not in the patient's best interest and the presence of any condition that would not allow the protocol to be followed safely, which included allergy or hypersensitivity to lopinavir, ritonavir, severe liver disease in the form of elevated liver enzymes, especially SGOT and SGPT, more than 5 times the normal, pregnancy or breastfeeding, known HIV infection because of the concerns of development of resistance to lopinavir and ritonavir if used with other antiretrovirals. This trial was an open-label, individually randomized, controlled trial conducted from January 18, 2020 through February 3, 2020 in Jinyan Tan Hospital, Wuhan, Hubei Province, China. Placebos of lopinavir and ritonavir were not prepared because of the emergency nature of this trial. Eligible patients were assigned in a 1:1 ratio randomly to receive either lopinavir, ritonavir orally plus standard care or standard care alone. The lopinavir ritonavir ratio was 400 mg lopinavir and ritonavir 100 mg orally, and it was given for a total of 14 days. And standard care comprised, as necessary, included supplemental oxygen, non-invasive and invasive ventilation, antibiotics, vasopressor support, renal replacement therapy, and extracorporeal membrane oxygenation. Patients enrolled in the study were assessed once daily by trained nurses using diary cards that captured data on a 7-category ordinal scale and on safety from day 0 to day 28, hospital discharge or death. Safety was monitored by a good clinical practice office from Jinyan Tan Hospital, and other clinical data were recorded using the WHO International Severe Acute Respiratory and Emerging Infections Consortium case record forms. The serial oropharyngeal swab samples were obtained on day 1 and on days 5, 10, 14, 21 and 28 until discharge or death had occurred, and sampling did not stop when a swab was negative at any given point of time. The baseline throat swabs which were were detected for E gene, RDRP gene and N gene, and the subsequent visits swabs were qualitatively detected for E gene. The primary endpoint was a time to clinical improvement, which was defined as a time from randomization to an improvement of at least 2 points on a 7-category ordinal scale or live discharge from the hospital, whichever came first. The 7-point ordinal scale included these 7 categories, which is not hospitalized normal activities, not hospitalized no normal activities, hospitalized no supportive oxygen, hospitalized with supportive oxygen, hospitalized with requiring non-invasive ventilation, hospitalized requiring invasive ventilation, and death. Other clinical outcomes included clinical status as assessed with the 7-category ordinal scale on days 7 and 14, mortality at day 28, the duration of the mechanical ventilation, duration of the hospitalization in survivors, the time from treatment initiation to death, and virological measures, which included the proportions with viral RNA detection over time and viral RNA titer area under the curve measurements. Safety outcomes included adverse events that occurred during the treatment, serious adverse events, and premature discontinuation of treatment. And these adverse events were classified according to the National Cancer Institute Common Terminology Criteria for Adverse Events, version 4.2. Initially, the total sample size was set at 160, since it would have provided the trial with 80% power to detect a difference at a two-sided significance level of alpha 0.05. However, the planned enrollment of 160 patients in the trial occurred quickly, and a decision was made by the investigators to continue enrollment. And subsequently, another agent, which was remdesivir, became available for the clinical trials, and then the enrollment of the patients were stopped. And among the 357 patients who were assessed for eligibility, 158 were excluded because 113 did not meet the eligibility criteria, 31 did not have family consent, and 14 had other reasons. Among the 199 patients who underwent randomization, 99 were assigned to lopinavir ritonavir group, where they were included in the intention to treat population, and 100 were assigned to the standard care group, where they were included in the intention to treat population. Among the group in lopinavir and ritonavir, 3 died within 24 hours after admission and did not receive lopinavir and ritonavir, and hence 96 were included in the modified intention to treat population. And among those, 2 did not receive lopinavir and ritonavir, hence 95 were included in the safety population. Coming to the results, the median age of patients was 58 years, and 60.3% of the patients were men. The median interval between symptom onset and the randomization was 13 days. And as we can see in the table, there was no important difference between the two groups in demographics, baseline laboratory test results, distribution of ordinal scale scores, or the news2 scores at enrollment. During the trial, uh, systemic glucocorticoids were administered in 33% of the patients in lopinavir-ritonavir group and 35.7% among the group receiving standard care. Coming to the primary outcome, there was no difference between the lopinavir group and the standard care group in the median time to clinical improvement, and this was among the intention to treat population. In the modified intention to treat population, the median time to clinical improvement was 15 days in lopinavir-ritonavir group as compared with 16 days in the standard care group. In addition, uh, when time to clinical deterioration was compared between the two groups, there was no difference observed, and time to clinical deterioration. Clinical deterioration is defined as one category increase on the 7 category ordinal scale. Coming to the secondary outcomes, the 28-day mortality was numerically lower in lopinavir-ritonavir group than in the standard care group for both intention to treat population and the modified intention to treat population. And also the patients in lopinavir-ritonavir group had shorter stay in the intensive care unit than those receiving standard care alone. And in addition, the percentage of patients with clinical improvement at day 14 was higher in lopinavir-ritonavir group than in the standard care group. And there was no significant differences for other outcomes such as duration of oxygen therapy, duration of hospitalization, and the time from randomization to death. It was also noted that the viral RNA loads over time did not differ between the lopinavir-ritonavir recipients and those receiving standard care alone, including analysis according to the duration of illness. A total of 46 patients in the lopinavir-ritonavir group and 49 in the standard care group reported adverse events. Uh, Gastrointestinal adverse events including nausea, vomiting, and diarrhea were most common in lopinavir-ritonavir group than in the standard care group, and the percentages of patients with laboratory abnormalities were similar in both groups. Serious adverse events occurred in 51 patients, among which 19 were in the lopinavir-ritonavir group and 32 events were in the standard care group. And there were 4 serious gastrointestinal adverse events, all of which occurred in the lopinavir-ritonavir group and none of them in the standard care group. All 4 events were judged by the investigators to be related to the trial medication. Respiratory failure, acute kidney injury, and secondary infections were more common in the patients receiving standard care, and all deaths during the observation period were judged by the site investigators to be unrelated to the intervention. Uh, this randomized trial found that the lopinavir-ritonavir treatment added to the standard supportive care was not associated with any clinical improvement or mortality in seriously ill patients with COVID-19, which was different that associated with only standard care. However, the modified intention to treat analysis, which excluded 3 patients uh, with early death, the difference between groups in the median time to clinical improvement was significant, albeit a small one. The overall mortality in this trial, which was 22.1%, was substantially higher than the 11 to 14.5% mortality reported in the initial descriptive studies of hospitalized patients with COVID-19. This indicated that the patients enrolled in this study were a severely ill population, and the patient population which was enrolled was heterogeneous with regard to duration and severity of illness. And a post-hoc subgroup analysis, the difference in the mortality between clopidogrel group and the standard care group was observed to be numerically greater among patients treated within 12 days after the onset of symptoms among those who were treated later. And the question of whether earlier lopinavir-ritonavir treatment in COVID-19 could have clinical benefit is an important one that requires further study. It was also found that the numbers of lopinavir-ritonavir recipients who had serious complications like acute kidney injury and secondary infections, or requiring non-invasive or invasive mechanical ventilation for respiratory failure were fewer than in those not receiving treatment. It was also noted that adding lopinavir-ritonavir treatment did not reduce the viral RNA loads or duration of the viral RNA detectability as compared with the standard supportive care alone. And at the end of the trial, the SARS-CoV-2 RNA was still detected in 40.7% of the patients in lopinavir-ritonavir group, and the reasons for the apparent lack of antiviral effects are uncertain. But the sampling methods used in the current trial were most likely suboptimal. Samples were taken only intermittently on days 1, 5, 10, 14, 21, and 28, and more frequent sampling in the first 5 days could have provided more detailed characterization of viral load kinetics in the two groups over this critical period. In addition, previous studies have shown that the throat swab specimens have a lower viral loads than nasopharyngeal samples, and importantly, the sampling of lower respiratory tract secretions could not be done in this trial. Nearly 14% of lopinavir-ritonavir recipients were unable to complete the full 14-day course of administration, and this was primarily due to gastrointestinal adverse events, including anorexia, nausea, abdominal discomforts, or diarrhea, as well as two serious adverse events, both of which were acute gastritis. Coming to the limitations, this trial had several limitations. In particular, the trial was not blinded, so it is possible that the knowledge of the treatment assignment might have influenced the clinical decision making that in further could have affected the ordinal scale measurements which was used in this trial. Also, uh, the differences between the groups in frequency of use of concurrent pharmacological interventions such as glucocorticoids was not observed. This could have been another confounder. And in addition, approximately 45% and 40% of the patients in lopinavir-ritonavir group had positive RNA detection by throat swab on day 14 and day 28 respectively, and it is not known if the infectious virus was still present, as an attempt to isolate virus or assess the possible emergence of SARS-CoV-2 variants with reduced susceptibility to lopinavir was not done. Finally, do not have the data on the lopinavir exposure levels in these seriously and often critically ill patients. In conclusion, it was found that the lopinavir-ritonavir treatment did not significantly accelerate clinical improvement, reduce mortality, or diminish throat viral RNA detectability in patients with serious COVID-19. Now let us see few other articles which are related to this. This article was published in Lancet on May 30th, and it was done in Hong Kong. And this trial assessed the efficacy and safety of combined interferon beta 1b, lopinavir, ritonavir, and ribavirin for treating the patients with COVID-19. They concluded that early triple antiviral therapy was safe and superior to lopinavir and ritonavir alone in alleviating symptoms and shortening the duration of viral shedding and hospital stay in patients with mild to moderate COVID. This is another article from Lancet published on April 29, 2020. This was conducted in 10 hospitals in Wuhan, China, in which 237 patients were enrolled and randomly assigned in a ratio 2:1 to receive remdesivir or placebo. And they came to a conclusion that adult patients admitted to hospitals with severe COVID, remdesivir was not associated with statistically significant clinical benefits. However, the numerical reduction in time to clinical improvement in those treated earlier requires confirmation in larger studies. This is another article published in NEJM on May 27, 2020 online. Um, it had enrolled 397 patients from around 50 hospitals, and they were divided into 1:1 ratio, and they received either remdesivir for 5 days or 10 days. They concluded that in patients with severe COVID-19 not requiring mechanical ventilation, this trial did not show any significant difference between the 5-day course and a 10-day course of remdesivir with no placebo control. However, the magnitude of the benefit cannot be determined. Since among all the different trials, remdesivir has shown some promising results, many trials has been started all over the world. This image shows the different trials undergoing on the different trial sites around the world where remdesivir trials are going on. We'll have to wait for all the results of these trials to see the efficacy of remdesivir in treating COVID.